welcome to the Thinking Stack. You've joined us today for a deep dive into a really significant book. It's one that gets talked about a lot, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, definitely significant and polarizing, right? Some people see it as this, essential guide for getting ahead.
The ultimate playbook, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But then others look at it and see something, well, pretty dark. A manual for manipulation, basically.
So today, we're going to put it under the microscope. We're doing a full 7-layer integrated thinking stack autopsy on it.
Right. Laying it out on the table, we're not just asking if Greene is, right or wrong. That feels a bit surface level.
It really does. We want to dig deeper. What are the assumptions behind these laws? What happens if everyone starts acting this way? What's the actual human cost?
So think about this with us. What happens when millions of people start treating life like it's just a game of chess?
And everyone else is just a pawn to be moved around.
Exactly. We're going to peel back those layers today, one by one.
Okay, let's start right at the core. Layer 1, cognitive cleanse. What are we actually looking at here? What's the central message stripped down?
Well, when you boil it down, it feels pretty cynical, doesn't it? The core message seems to be something like, trust no one, ever.
Hide what you're really up to.
Make sure your enemies are totally destroyed.
And definitely use people's feelings against them if it helps you. Is that about right?
I think that captures the essence. Now, is that real wisdom? Or is it something else? Something maybe more damaged?
It's definitely packaged as wisdom, as this kind of hard-hitting realism. This is how the world really works,
Right.
But with cognitive cleanse, we have to ask, what's actually true? Not what we're afraid of, not what might feed our cynicism, but what's really going on.
Because if you strip away the, let's say, dramatic historical stories Greene uses...
The ones that make ruthlessness seem kind of glamorous.
Yeah, those. What are you left with? It feels like a perspective that's just obsessed with the negative potential in people. Like wearing glasses that only show you betrayal.
And it's not just observing, it's actively encouraging it. Some of these laws are pretty stark.
Oh, yeah. Law 3. Conceal your intentions.
Law 6. Court attention at all costs. That one always gets me.
And Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. I mean...
These aren't exactly tips for building, healthy teams or strong communities, are they?
Not really. They feel more like instructions for, inducing paranoia in yourself. Is that really seeing clearly? Or is it seeing through a lens of past hurts, maybe?
It definitely feels more like a trauma-tinted view. And that's what cognitive cleanse helps us unpack. We need to pull apart the story he's telling.
The compelling narrative.
Right, and ask, is this really the fundamental way humans operate? Is power all about this constant manipulation? Or is that a distorted picture?
Because, when you look at the science of evolutionary biology, for instance, it tells a different story. Cooperation was huge for our success as a species.
We wouldn't gotten anywhere without it. Building societies, working together.
Exactly. It wasn't just backstabbing all the way down. Does Greene's model really account for that side of us?
It feels like it minimizes it or ignores it completely. And psychology backs this up too, right? Things like empathy and trust.
Which are practically weaknesses in Greene's book.
Right. But research shows they're huge predictors of long-term success, like actual success in life and work. There's even research linking trust to economic growth on a big scale.
So is Greene showing us reality or a very specific, maybe fear-driven slice of it?
I think the appeal for some people is that it validates negative experiences.
Wow.
If you feel like you've been screwed over.
Yeah, the book kind of whispers, see? You aren't wrong to be suspicious. The world is out to get you.
You're not paranoid, you're just smart.
Right. It's tempting if you feel powerless. Finally, someone gets it.
But a story feeling true, especially when it resonates with pain, doesn't make it true. Cognitive cleanse demands we question the why behind these laws.
Okay, let's take those examples again. Concealing intentions. Is that really strategy? Or could it just be, a fear of getting close to people?
Or courting attention? Is that power? Or just needing everyone to tell you you're okay? A deep need for validation.
And crushing enemies. Maybe that's not strength. Maybe it's just unresolved anger. An inability to handle conflict like an adult.
Yeah. It feels like he's taking these patterns, maybe rooted in trauma or insecurity.
And rebranding them as clever tactics.
Exactly. And maybe it resonates because, manipulation can feel easier sometimes, can't it?
Definitely feels safer than being vulnerable, showing your real self, building walls instead of bridges.
So the takeaway from layer 1, The 48 Laws doesn't offer clarity, really. It offers a kind of hypervigilance.
A distortion, like seeing the world through a warped mirror.
Yeah, like wearing really uncomfortable, heavy armor. It might feel protective for a second, but you can't actually move or connect properly.
And the real world, it's way more complex than that, and it tends to reflect back how you engage with it.
Okay, so that's perception. Let's move to layer 2, moral intelligence. Because every time someone quotes one of these laws, the first thing I think is, okay, but what's the ethical cost here? Who wins and who gets hurt?
That's the key question. And moral intelligence in our stack isn't just like simple good or bad. It's more nuanced.
Context matters. Who benefits? Who suffers? Who's being completely ignored in this power play?
And looking at Greene's book through that lens, wow, it feels like a masterclass in, what, moral outsourcing?
Like the message is, if it gets you power, it's fine. The ethics are secondary.
The ends justify the means, pretty much across the board. Is that your read?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is just dangerous. It lets you off the hook for your own moral compass. Like Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit.
Ugh. Yeah.
I mean, come on. And what ethical system is that? Okay, it's basically stealing someone else's effort.
It's pure exploitation disguised as being smart. And honestly, it feels cowardly too. Real power involves taking responsibility, owning your stuff.
Not shifting blame or grabbing undeserved credit.
Exactly. It reminds me of, ancient wisdom traditions that emphasize acting with integrity, doing your part well, respecting the process. Greene's law is the polar opposite.
And that's what moral intelligence pushes us towards. Considering the impact on everyone, not just your own bottom line. It needs empathy, responsibility.
Things that seem completely absent in Greene's purely transactional world.
Yeah. And what's really concerning is who this book seems to appeal to sometimes. People feeling powerless.
And it's like Greene is saying, okay, the rules didn't work for you. Fine, just ditch the rules altogether.
It feels like a kind of moral blackmail, playing on people's hurt and resentment.
So layer 2 shows us these laws aren't just like ethically neutral, they're actively corrosive.
They destroy trust, they encourage using people, they turn connection into a weapon.
He's not teaching leadership based on respect or shared goals, he's teaching extraction.
Taking value from others.
Yeah, and if your path to success requires that, it's not power, it's theft. Theft of work, theft of dignity maybe.
And that's a huge ethical price.
Huge.
Okay, let's zoom out. Layer 3, systemic foresight. What happens if this worldview really takes hold? Imagine a society where most people operate by these laws. What does that look like long term?
Oh man, it's not pretty, is it? It sounds like a recipe for total social breakdown. Constant suspicion, zero trust.
Like a slow motion collapse of everything that holds society together.
Yeah. Systemic foresight makes you think about those knock-on effects, the unintended consequences. And Greene's playbook seems designed to create them.
Think about Law 3 again. Conceal intentions. If everyone does that, how do you solve anything complex? How do you collaborate?
You can't. Or Law 6. Court attention. What kind of culture does that create? All surface, no substance.
Constant noise, maybe. And Law 15. Crush your enemy. On a societal scale, that's just endless conflict, cycles of revenge.
It's like emotional pollution, poisoning the atmosphere until genuine connection just can't survive.
And the irony is Greene talks about power as control. But if everyone adopts his tactics, it doesn't lead to control. It leads to chaos. Constant maneuvering, backstabbing. It destabilizes everything.
Yeah, it reminds me of what systems thinking teaches us, like in Donella Meadows' work. Systems that prioritize short-term wins and dominance over collaboration and the health of the whole, they're fragile.
They look strong for a while, maybe?
But they're built on shaky ground, destined to collapse eventually.
You see it in history, right?
Yeah.
Empires consumed by infighting. Companies that cook the books and crash.
Yep. They seemed unbeatable until suddenly they weren't.
So Layer 3 tells us Greene's laws aren't just bad ethics. They're bad systems. They make things unstable.
They optimize for the individual predator, not the health of the ecosystem. Yeah. And no group, no society can survive that trade-off long term.
It's a race to the bottom.
Pretty much. A zero-sum game that eventually hurts everyone, don't you think?
Absolutely. Okay, now let's turn inward again. Layer 4. Embodied Insight. What does trying to live like this actually do to you? Physically? Emotionally?
Right, because these aren't just ideas. You try to embody them, and it changes your whole system. It puts you in permanent survival mode.
Constant vigilance. Always scanning for threats, calculating angles.
It's exhausting. and it messes with your nervous system big time. It disconnects you from your own gut feelings, your intuition about people.
It's like you're constantly telling your body there's a danger, even when there isn't. Think about polyvagal theory.
Yeah, that constant threat signal messes with your vagus nerve. It blocks your ability to feel calm, connected, empathetic.
You get stuck in fight or flight.
Exactly. Greene's laws basically wire your body for war, flooding you with stress hormones. And over time, you might even start thinking that constant anxiety is wisdom.
Which is a scary thought.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's a trauma layer here too, isn't there? Always suppressing vulnerability, managing every emotion strategically.
Like, that's a classic adaptation to difficult experiences. Some research, like Bessel van der Kolk's, talks about how the body holds on to that stuff.
So look at the laws again through that lens. Law 3, concealing intentions. That's chronic guardedness in your body, never feeling safe.
Law 6, courting attention. Maybe that's like an addiction to external validation just to feel okay inside.
And Law 15, crushing enemies. That's keeping your body locked in fight mode. Tension, aggression, prevents any real peace.
So he's not teaching power, he's teaching somatic dysregulation.
Pretty much. And when your body's stuck in defense mode, you don't have the resources for creativity, for love, for clear thinking.
And doesn't Lisa Feldman Barrett's work touch on this? Like, if you're always predicting betrayal,
Your brain gets better at creating that experience. You become more paranoid. It's a feedback loop.
you end up living in this kind of trance where exhaustion feels like effort, numbness feels like strength, suspicion feels like strategy.
But underneath, you're just disconnected from yourself, from others.
So layer 4's takeaway is pretty stark. Practicing this stuff doesn't just impact others, it harms you.
Deeply. You lose touch with yourself. You silence your own inner guidance system. You live in chronic stress.
That's a heavy price for this kind of power.
Way too heavy.
Okay, layer 5, human-centered design. Do these laws actually work with real, messy, emotional human beings?
The reality check layer. Because Greene often talks about people like they're predictable robots, right? Chess pieces you can just move around.
But people aren't like that. We're complicated, driven by feelings, by connection, by all sorts of things Greene seems to ignore.
Exactly. We're not algorithms. And human-centered design asks, does this theory actually hold up when faced with real human behavior? If not, it's just fantasy.
So law 6 again, court attention. Okay, maybe you get noticed, but in real life, doesn't that constant look-at-me stuff often backfire?
Totally. People tend to value authenticity more than relentless self-promotion. It can get really annoying really fast.
Or law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. Greene thinks that's clever.
But people can usually sense insincerity, can't they? Even if they can't name it. That feeling of being used, it kills trust.
Yeah, like Daniel Goleman talks about in Social Intelligence, we're wired to pick up on those subtle cues.
And think about work. Try using these tactics in an office. Maybe you get ahead for 5 minutes.
But you destroy morale, you create distrust, burnout goes up, creativity goes down. People work best when they feel safe, right?
Absolutely. Psychological safety is key for high-performing teams. Greene's approach is the opposite of that.
And in personal life,
Yeah.
law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew, using someone's vulnerability against them.
That's not connection, that's emotional blackmail. It might give you temporary leverage.
But it poisons the relationship, leads to resentment, resistance, eventually maybe to total breakdown. People don't like being treated like tools.
So Greene's laws fail because they fundamentally misunderstand people. He underestimates trust, connection, reciprocity.
A model that ignores basic human nature is just broken. It's not going to work long term.
So layer 5 shows us this strategy is built on a flawed understanding of its target human beings. It's destined to backfire.
Right. Let's put this whole philosophy through a stress test now. Layer 6, risk and resilience. What happens when things go wrong, when the world throws you a curveball?
Does Greene's model hold up? Or does it shatter?
Because, as we said, these laws are about dominance, control. And dominance can be surprisingly fragile.
It relies on things staying predictable, on people not pushing back too hard.
Yeah. Greene's model seems to assume you can always manipulate people, you'll always be in control, the world won't change too much.
Which are all pretty shaky assumptions, especially today.
Totally. And this makes me think of Nassim Taleb's idea of anti-fragility.
Right, systems that actually get stronger from chaos and shocks.
Greene's model feels like the exact opposite. It feels brittle. Built for stability, maybe, but not for the real messy world.
Think about it. Power based on secrets. One leak, and it's gone.
Power based on fear. It collapses when people find courage.
Power based on silencing dissent. It breaks when people speak up anyway.
History is full of examples. Regimes that looked invincible.
Companies built on lies. They all eventually fall apart, often suddenly.
Because Greene's model is optimized for a static world you control. It has no answer for dynamism for unexpected events.
It's like building a house of cards in a wind tunnel.
And systems based on just dominating people. They breed resistance. People put up with it for a while.
But eventually they push back, often hard.
So what does a resilient approach look like? More transparency, maybe? More trust? Feedback loops? Adaptability?
Pretty much the opposite of what Greene advocates.
So layer 6 tells us, if your power strategy can't handle surprises, can't handle truth, can't handle failure, it's not real power.
It's a fragile illusion. The future belongs to the adaptable, the connected, not the controllers.
Okay, last layer. Let's bring it down to earth. Layer 7, execution engine. Can you actually live these laws effectively day to day? Can you adapt them?
Or are they just pronouncements, ideas that sound tough but don't actually work well in practice?
I lean towards the latter. They feel performative, not iterative. Tactical, maybe, but not truly adaptable.
Like Law 1, never outshine the master. Okay, in a super rigid hierarchy, maybe that keeps you safe for a bit.
But what about innovation? What if the junior person has the breakthrough idea? Following that law actively hurts progress.
True execution isn't just following rules, it's learning, adjusting, responding to feedback. Greene's book offers none of that.
There's no user testing for your manipulation tactics, no reflection process, no iteration.
Which makes it feel more like a rigid ideology than a flexible toolkit. Compare it to things that do work.
Like Agile in software, or Boyd's OD loop in strategy. Design thinking.
Yeah, those are all about observing, learning, adapting, iterating based on reality. Greene's laws feel frozen in time.
And the funny thing is, real influence today often comes from the opposite direction, doesn't it? Transparency, collaboration, empowering others.
That's where sustainable impact comes from, not secrecy and control.
So trying to live by Greene's script, it feels like. LARPing Machiavelli. In a world that's mostly moved on.
Yeah, like playing an old game with outdated rules.
So the final word on execution. Ideas you can't test and adapt aren't tools, they're dogmas.
Greene's laws push you to dig in, not evolve.
And any strategy that demands total control, but hates feedback and truth.
It's brittle. It's gonna break.
Okay, so we've gone through all 7 layers of the integrated thinking stack on the 48 laws of power. What's the final picture?
Well, we saw a pretty consistent thread, didn't we? Cognitive cleanse showed a paranoid worldview.
Moral intelligence revealed the ethical cost.
Systemic foresight predicted instability and breakdown.
Embodied insight showed the personal toll, stress, disconnection.
Human-centered design highlighted its clash with actual human behavior.
Risk and resilience exposed its fragility.
And execution showed its lack of adaptability, its impracticality.
So our conclusion, the 48 laws of power. It's not really a guide to effective leadership or lasting success.
No, it feels more like a manual for acting out of fear, mimicking power instead of building it authentically.
In a world that really needs the opposite right now, wisdom, connection.
Real power, the kind that lasts and does good, it comes from clarity, from integrity, from being willing to learn and evolve.
And that's what we try to build towards here at the Thinking Stack.
Definitely. So until next time, remember, strategy is nothing without soul.
Influence is nothing without embodiment.
And power is nothing without people.